people who are in the essential services have to be transported. I don't know if he's saying that he has to carry a passenger to the airport to depart from Barbados.
Yes, that's what he's saying.
Yeah. Well, and what time is the flight? What time is the flight? Not that you would have that information.
I don't have that.
But there are a whole set of things that I'm sure you didn't. That was a rhetorical question.
Right.
And there are a whole set of considerations that we need to take into account. But here's what we suggest, okay? It is a challenge for the system to process individual applications.
It's true.
We're doing our best, but it is simply an administrative nightmare. In the last hour, I've got a request for 281 exemptions coming to my direct email address, and that has nothing to do with the ones that go to the ministry. In cases where people belong to a representative body, so if there's an association, like if he's a part of a co-op or something, the co-op should write so that and indicate these are our people, and we need a limited pass for these, and we can put a system in place, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. But to try to issue an individual pass for him presents a challenge, and I have to say that there are also some law enforcement considerations, because we have no way of validating what an individual is saying. And so therefore a man named John Brown can write and say, I am a caregiver. I want to deliver care to my dear aunt or something. Because we have no way of validating that information, we have to be very careful in saying, yes, you're being issued a pass, because we have to remember that while all of this is happening, the criminal element is still very, very hard at work in Barbados.
It is true.
And therefore, that's a consideration that we are taking into account, okay?
Yes. Okay, let's take another call and let the person who asked me for the hotline number know that number is 536-4500. 536-4500. Good morning. Well, it's noon in Barbados. Hello?
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Mr. Ellis.
Hi.
I want to share some there should be similar concerns that other callers would have voiced with regards to the government making the decision that they made, which has created the chaos that I have seen at, for example, Sky Mall and Warren's, the Price Marks and the Cultureless and the Macy's and so forth. I strongly believe that what the government should have done was to announce on Sunday that on Friday at 5, the whole country will be shut down, which would have given citizens 1 week to prepare for the shutdown. The government has made a blunder, plain and simple. All the in Beja parlance, highfalutin words and talk, right? They have made a blunder in this regard. I'm also asking the question: where is the disaster emergency management? Where are they in all of this? Because I haven't heard any spokesperson from that organization making any statements, and I would hope that they played a role in this whole disaster, because this is disaster management. And to me, the brains that are in that organization should have had some role, if they haven't, right, in this whole management, because it's pure chaos. What the government was trying to avoid of the mass gathering of persons, right, they have created today by the decisions that they have made. They have blundered, plain and simple. They have put persons' lives in danger, even although we as citizens are responsible as well. Okay? For example, at Trimart today, Sky Mall, there was no proper system of persons 6 feet from each other, right? There were persons who were there to pay the digital bill. There are persons who were there from the supermarket. So I'm asking myself the question, where is the leadership and where was the conversations having with regards to the supermarkets and those as to how persons, their employees, right, or some form of security, right, is supposed to have persons in line? Because it's pure chaos today, not on the roads, but at the various establishments.
Let's get a response from your comments. Who's going to take that? The acting PM?
Yes, I'll take that.
I appreciate the concerns which the caller has expressed. I mean, I don't think that there's no precedent across the world for how we are supposed to do this. I think based on the medical evidence that we have been presented with and all of the data, we felt it was in the best interest of the country to be able to do the shutdown at this time. And because people were not adhering to the warnings, it made it particularly difficult for the Ministry of Health and the health officials to be able to manage the situation properly. We accept that, yes, people have rushed out to the supermarkets and to the various concessionary places to be able to purchase items. We regret that people are not adhering to the social distancing, but I believe the situation could have been far worse as well if we did not take steps at this point in time. All of the persons who operate businesses have said the same thing to us. They are very concerned not just about the public, but they are concerned about their own workers. And I want the caller to understand as well that this is a public health emergency. He's spoken about disaster emergency management, but this is really a public health emergency situation that we are dealing with. And at all times, we've been guided, and the Ministry of Health has been involved in the decision-making process to guide us as to what was necessary at each step of the way. So I can give him that assurance that is, we are doing things because we are guided by. So I can give him that assurance that is right now things because we are guided by. So I can give him that assurance that is right now things because we are guided by. So I can give him that assurance that is right now things because we are guided by. So I can give him that assurance that is right now things because we are guided by. So I can give him that assurance that is right now. I can and they're huddled together, and we can't allow that to continue. These are some of the realities that we've been facing. So the restrictions are nothing that we take pleasure as a government in doing, but they're necessary at this point if we are to be able to control the spread of this virus and to be able to manage it given the necessary resources that we have available to us at this time. I'll let Mr. Carter also speak to the issue of the Disaster Management Agency as well.
Yeah, just a quick response on the Disaster Management Agency. So the government put in place and stood up the Augmented National Security Council, which included the Office of Disaster Emergency Management. And members and representatives of that agency have been sitting in consultation, and they're openly invited to the Health Emergency Operations Center, which makes a number of the public health decisions. So just to assure the caller, if an assurance were required, that the Disaster Emergency Management Agency is part of the discussions and planning of the government of Barbados.
Mr. Ellis,
I'd like to make a comment.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand all that has been said.
Yes.
Right? And I'm still going to hold fast that the government has made a blunder in this regard. Now, I have no problem with this shutting down. I don't think many Barbadians don't have a problem with this shutting down, because a lot of Barbadians were calling for it based on the news reports worldwide, China, USA, England, Italy, and those, that they have shut down. But I'm making the point here is that unless the responsibility is on those entities, the supermarkets and those, to control the masses of Barbadians, right, with whatever management system that they would have put in place in order to curtail and to control the crowd.
This guy was watching this stuff from Cayman Islands and sent this message. He says that in Cayman, what they have done, shopping and banking has been done on certain days by alphabet. So if your last name ended in A through M, you shop on Mondays, and you work it out that way. Other people have said a similar thing. So perhaps
that further reinforces my point of giving a week's notice. And I use Sunday as an example to announce the shutdown, which would occur on Friday, And that could have been implemented. Yes, these are uncharted waters. I understand that, and we are educated.
Yeah, but how do you put it? Let's accept.
Follow all the international rules.
Okay, but let's accept the what you said, that it could have been done differently. The issue that we must confront now is, how would you suggest that we correct it now?
Okay, good. But let me make a suggestion here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I don't know if it's too late, but we have it at 5 o'clock. It's now 12:05. They should have at least 2 police officers, maybe 3, as well as 2 defense force personnel, maybe 4, at each of those locations. I saw Mati, I saw Trimar, and I think possibly had the lines in terms of the tape that you're supposed to keep 6 feet distance. That is something, by having the law enforcement and the defense force there, could have been or should have been implemented, because the normal staff that I saw today could not handle the crowd that was there.
Okay, so let me ask the Attorney General. Let me ask the Attorney General and the other members of the panel to respond to that.
If I can, David.
Sure.
Now, let's remember that this is our first tightening of the restrictions of an existing curfew. When the Prime Minister announced the curfew last week, a curfew order was made and a curfew directive was given. And let me say that we were in discussions last week, before the curfew was first imposed, with the supermarkets and so on, because we needed them to understand what we were doing, because there was the potential of these very crowds. And in our curfew directive, sir, we put in a provision which says very clearly that the owner and operator of every business shall restrict the number of persons within or outside this establishment at any one time in order to ensure that a distance of at least 6 feet is maintained between every person. Now, from day one, we put the obligation on the owners of the business to ensure that Barbadians, either inside or outside, maintain social distancing. They've always known that this was their obligation. So please don't try to put this particular issue on the government. I've traveled on the roads this morning and I've gone to supermarkets and I've seen Barbadians lined up, properly distanced, without the bunching and without the crowding. So let us put this particular problem where it really lies. That Barbadians, yes, we accept that panic causes people to respond in different ways, but we still have to say that Barbadians need to recognize that for their safety's sake, they need to be 6 feet from the person in front of them, and the person behind of them has to be 6 feet away. Now, we could send extra police there. There are already police there. If the caller would go to any of those locations, they would see that there are police from the tactical response unit on location. But the fact is that Barbadians still have an obligation to be disciplined themselves. How is it that at some places people are standing up properly distant, while at others that isn't happening? On the road here today, people are properly distant. So I think the caller has to accept that, yes, there is panic. Yes, there's a challenge, but if Barbadians operated properly and following the mandate, we wouldn't even be having this discussion.
Okay, let's take another call.
I just want to add, David, as well, that the reality is that when we talk even about Cayman Islands, we're talking about 30,000 people. Yeah. Barbados has over 300,000, and therefore we're talking apples and oranges. Now, the fact of the matter is that we do have a plan in place in terms of how we will get Barbadians, not just through today, but also next week, and to be able to take them to the curfew and beyond, because there must be a Barbados when we are finished with all of these measures, okay? So it is not to say that today everything comes to an end and we haven't thought through the process of putting a curfew in place. But I want Barbadians to appreciate that we've had to take these measures first and foremost for their own safety. Because there are a few Barbadians who have not paid attention to, as the Attorney General has said, the physical distancing mechanisms that we've been repeatedly saying, we can't only put it on the government. We also have to say that there's individual responsibility as well that must exist. And really, we are all in this together. We provide the information as a government. We are asking and calling on Barbadians to hold our hands at this point and to be able to do these things that we're asking them repeatedly to do. Ensure that they sanitize, ensure that they wash their hands, ensure that they keep a safe physical distance from persons. But at the point when they do not heed the call and the warnings that we've been giving, we have no other choice but to protect the vast majority of the citizens of this country. And it should really be seen in no other context than that, David.
Well, I suppose that we understand what your objective is. If, however, you make a decision that at the end of the day creates the very environment that you're trying to avoid, then I think both the people who make that decision and the public will both have to share some responsibility for it. Because if coming out of today, we have a significant increase in the numbers associated with this particular virus, then the whole objective could be counterproductive. That's the point that some people are making.
But I think the message has to constantly be put over that while we are closing today, and we've made the announcement that we're closing today, we've also said we have continued our discussions with our various stakeholders. We've looked at the whole issue of e-commerce. We've looked, as the Attorney General has said, we've continued to look at the exemptions for the persons who require the exemptions, but we do so obviously with caution as well, because we still don't want to grant exemptions just for the sake of it. And we've done it within limited categories of persons, but we continue to even talk with the food distributors as well. Okay. So those are the things that we are trying to put the mechanisms in place. And I know that we also have provision for persons to be able, as was said earlier, to look at the alphabetical or even through the ID card of being able to have specific days when persons may be able to go and do their shopping within limited hours. Okay. So we're not just planning for today, we're planning for next week as well. And I must tell you, the subcommittee of cabinet is actually meeting tonight. I mean, we speak throughout the day, but we are meeting tonight at 8:30 when Bajans will be at home, because we understand that we are leaving no stone unturned in order to be able to find the solutions to this problem.
Fine. This person says that they are a nurse and they showed symptoms and they were in self-quarantine for 14 days. But she isn't receiving any calls about her condition. She said she made calls to no avail. And she isn't able to get supplies. No help is being offered. And the question is, how would she go about getting her medication and other necessary supplies? Apply this to her and any of the other people in the health services who may be facing that kind of challenge.
Well, in relation to the lady, it's unfortunate that she's not getting the supplies, or that no one has actually reached out to her, because I know through the Ministry of Health they've put some systems in place to be able to address that. I don't know if you can speak to the caller perhaps offline and take the information so that we're in a position to reach out and just give that information to the Chief Medical Officer. But if she would cooperate, I would certainly ensure that we follow through with that. Let me just say to you as well that we've been looking at persons who are obviously healthcare workers. I know it started today. To allow those persons to be able to go within a specific time to the supermarket to be able to do their shopping, because we believe that those essential workers on the front line should also be given the opportunity to be able to have access to groceries as well. So, as I said, it is not a case of planning for today, but we have to be in a position to control this thing at one juncture. I don't think we can sit here and say, well, had we not done this or had we not done that we would be in a better position or a worse position. It is of concern, yes, but I think we have to take the steps that are necessary given the facts that are presented to us by the medical profession at this point in time.
Thank you. Let's take another call. Hello? It's
yes,
12:16.
Hi. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
This is Joanne here, David. The question is for the Prime Minister, Acting Prime Minister. We had a number of disconnections this morning regarding the telecoms companies. Is this something that you can look at and maybe use your office to reach out to these agencies and ask them to kindly reconnect the services maybe over the next couple of days and work with the government? Because there are a lot of lines right now at these agencies, long lines. People are frantic and they're trying to get their phones on. And in keeping with what you did with the BWA and asking for reconnection, can that consideration be given to that?
Yes, Joanne. Let me just tell you that we would have made what the substantive Prime Minister would have made representations to the general public, to all of the business communities previously. asking them to be patient with persons who would owe them at this point in time, as well as even the landlords, to not try to put out people at this time and also try not to enforce whether it's rent arrears or any other debt at this particular period. So that hasn't changed in terms of the government's position. It has come to our attention in relation to the issues that many persons are encountering with their bills today. I think even one of my cabinet colleagues had also expressed that he had some issues with a notice that was sent to him for disconnection as well. So at MIST, Senator McConney is actually looking into this now to have a word with the providers to be able to ask them through this period to be able to give some leniency to the general population. I think you would notice that our approach has been that while we are encountering all of these issues that are facing the country, we also recognize that with the gas stations, they're usually the outlet where people would top up their phones. And we've made the concession because we want people, when they're home, to be able to still have messages coming to them in relation to the public education messages about COVID, as well as updates, and also to be able to stay in contact with the general community. So it's not a case of that we are not tuned into what is happening, but we are appealing to all of the service providers really to cooperate with us and the citizens of this country at this very difficult time.
Okay.
Okay. One more question. The transport board buses. What time would be for the commuters? What time would be the last bus then this afternoon?
I don't think we haven't changed the transportation. I know in the initial stages, we had some concerns because we had attempted to shut it down a bit earlier. And a number of the healthcare workers and the essential workers who work shift work, we recognize that a number of them would have required the bus service to be able to run. I think that's now 10 or 11 o'clock. I think the last bus is traveling. But we've also asked people to make arrangements in terms of their own, through the entities. A number of them have made private arrangements for their staff to get home, recognizing obviously that not everyone takes the public transportation. We've also made some concessions in relation to persons who are part of the essential services where they would require a driver or a dedicated driver to basically take them to and from their place of work. So as those requests have come in, we've tried to accommodate, but we've not tinkered with public transportation. I mean, obviously, we're asking people to continue to follow the guidelines and only to leave home if it is absolutely necessary and within the confines of what we've stated. And if once there is that compliance, I think we should be able to manage the situation a lot better.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Let's take another call. Hello? You're on the air. Hello.
Good afternoon, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. No, I am just calling to say that I can understand the situation as it is in Barbados now. And I will say without apology that Barbadians, I think, are contributing basically to some of the chaos here, and they can't look to put the blame on government in certain things, because some of the things that I am seeing as a Barbadian, and I am one that believe I will adhere to the protocols, but there are some things that I am seeing as well that coming in decision making that I think needs to be looked at seriously, where we are talking about the elders, we are talking about the people, the merchants, we are talking about bankers and all these things. Now, I am saying that I understand what the Prime Minister would have said, that she would have appealed to some of these agencies not to do certain things and so. But when you make an appeal, it doesn't mean that the person that you're making the appeal to have to carry it out.
You have a question for the
I believe,
panel?
yes, Mr. Ellis. Yes, Mr. Ellis.
Mm-hmm.
That at the end of the day, that they need to do it. What I am dealing with is that we have mortgage companies, we have the banks, we have everything. I would like to know if when a directive was given that people that pay mortgages and things like this in this particular situation, that no interest and things like this will be put on if they don't pay in time and so on, given the circumstances and things of the day. I know why I'm asking these questions. We need that sometimes when the government is making decisions, that they come out and don't make appeals to the people who could say, well, that may be good, but I can still do it. I still got the opportunities to do what I want to do.
Okay, sir.
Directed
Let me get to find out if
I
there's
just
any
want
response.
to say, David, to the caller that, that has never been the Labour Party way to just be, high-handed in the way that we do things. We have always been in consultation with the people. We've always been in consultation with our stakeholders. We try to appeal to the good sense of judgment of all individuals first and foremost. It is only when people do not heed that, as we said the other day, hard ears, you won't hear, wave and feel. Every Bajan understands that saying, and it is in that context. Parents always tell the children, you must not do X, you must not do Y. But when do they get the lashes or when do they get the discipline? It is when they have repeatedly ignored the warnings. It is only then that you have to take different measures. So all I'm saying to you is our government has never been one to just be high-handed, and I don't believe under the leadership of the current Prime Minister that is going to be the intention. It's certainly not going to be my intention. We are going to continue to consult with our people. We're going to continue to encourage them to do the right thing, because I know that Barbadians know to do the right thing. And this may be difficult, but I think we have to continue to just appeal to their good sense of judgment in this situation.
It's 12:23. Let's take another call. Hello. You're on the air? Are you there? Hello.
Hi, good morning. This is Brasstacks.
It is. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon to you, sir. I have two quick questions. I work in a funeral home, which is supposed to be considered an essential service. Now that we have gone on the 24-hour lockdown, the question is, does the staff here need to get emergency passes?
The answer to that question is simple. Yes, you will have to get emergency passes, and therefore the funeral home would be the entity to make those arrangements on behalf of the relevant staff. But I'd also like to urge that even though we're going to accommodate essential services, we're still asking that we try to reduce, where possible, the number of staff. And while this may not relate to your particular operation, what we're saying is if an entity normally operates with 15 staff, you may be exempt in these circumstances, but we'd like you to try to help to reduce person-to-person contact by just if you can, maybe to 5. But your funeral home would be the entity to make contact and the arrangements for the passes, not the individuals who work there themselves.
Right, okay. My second question would be, we have staff who would work at the funerals, and then we also have staff who would be moving bodies from the hospital to the funeral home.
I'm not sure what the question in relation to them is. Funeral homes, by virtue of what they do, are going to be are considered to be an exempt service. So the people who move the bodies are an integral part and parcel of the operation. So I'm really not sure what the question is, but if you're trying to find out what is the scope of the exemption, I'm saying that the people in the funeral home, the staff, whether they deliver the bodies or handle the funeral, those individuals are exempt and therefore entitled to get passes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Ministers and COVID Czar, we're going to have to break for the news at 12:30, and I hope that when we come back, we'll have you to answer any other questions that members of the public may have. This is Down to Brasstacks.
These are some of the biggest sports stories of the past 4 weeks. This is Sports Month in Review, in association with Amaze Inc. Amaze has immune boosters to boost the immune system, to keep the flu and the viruses away. Call 420-7809.
The head of U.S. anti-doping, Travis Tygart, fears some athletes will take advantage of reduced drug testing during the coronavirus pandemic. Tygart says the outbreak opens a window of opportunity for those not willing to compete clean. Chairman of the National Anti-Doping Commission, Dr. Adrian Lord, says out-of-competition testing of Barbadian sportspersons is still intact despite the suspension of sport. Barbadian Zane Maloney is the early leader of the 2020 Radical Caribbean Cup, following a hat-trick of race wins in the opening round at the Bushy Park circuit. He now holds a 26-point lead over champion Stuart Maloney in the 5-round series. The St. Michael's School surpassed their one leaders Combermere in both the male and female categories to take top honours during the final day of action in the Frank Blackman zone of the Power 8 BSAC Championships. St. Michael amassed 443 points ahead of Combermere, Springer Memorial and Queen's College. Among the boys, St. Michael dominated once again with Combermere second, St. Leonard's boys third.
Off and running the under 17 girls 200 meters, and they're going like a freight train coming through the bend. And the early leader is Elia Agard of Frederick Smith. Agard of Frederick Smith here comes as well. Nia Brown into the home stretches. Agard, Nia Brown, and also Beyonce Waldron. Brown has the lead. It's Nia Brown in lane number 2. Here comes Agard. Brown is going. Agard is coming. Agard of the line gets it in 24.83 seconds.
And that was Sports Month in Review, in association with Amaze Inc.
Amaze has very effective, powerful natural products for cancer, hypertension, diabetes, eye problems, acid reflux, colds, flus, viruses, and much more. Excellent immune boosters to help give your body added resistance. Remember, Amaze has the real Arginine. Open Monday to Friday, 9 to 6, Saturday, 9 to 5, or as stipulated by government regulations. Come in or call us at 420-7809. For radio programs, video testimonies, updates, and other details, visit www.atamaze.com.
I remember when I was a child and Mommy used to take me for walks. She would pick me flowers and do anything to make me happy. Well, these days, I take her for walks in her wheelchair, and it's my turn now to do everything to make her happy. That's why I only trust Hospital Pack Briefs to keep her dry, protected, and comfortable. Because it's my turn now to take care of her the way she took care of me, with only the best.
Hospital Pack Adult Disposable Briefs, another trusted brand from AA Lucky's.
In the lunchtime edition, widespread scenes of chaos and panic at supermarkets across Barbados today as anxious shoppers try to stock up on supplies ahead of today's 5 p.m. shutdown of food stores as a 24-hour curfew goes into effect for 2 weeks. This as the acting Prime Minister and other top officials call for calm and patience, reminding the public COVID-19 is a crisis situation. The acting Prime Minister Bradshaw warns the situation might have been much worse had the government not taken action. Other Caribbean countries ramping up their COVID-19 measures, and the Ghana Elections Commission agrees to a national recount of ballots cast in the general election. Good afternoon. I'm Stetson Babb. This is the latest.
And the latest comes to you with the kind compliments of CIBC First Caribbean and the Insurance Corporation of Barbados. Always there when you need us most.
When we use our passion to create something special, we cherish the experience that brings the result. It isn't always smooth sailing, but that's the beauty of it. Because through experience and the help of knowledgeable partners, we learn and grow together. And we dream bolder dreams for the future, confident that your passion and our expertise will bring an ever bright tomorrow. ICBL, always there when you need us most.
CIBC First Caribbean informs its clients that in compliance with a directive given by the government of Barbados, all branches will be closed until further notice. Clients are encouraged to use the bank's online banking, mobile app services, and instant tellers where possible. CIBC First Caribbean thanks you for your understanding as it works to ensure that its clients and employees remain safe during this period.
Motorists, shoppers, and even law enforcement reported widespread scenes of chaos and even panic at supermarkets across Barbados today as anxious shoppers try to stock up on supplies ahead of today's 5 p.m. shutdown of food stores. A 24-hour curfew goes into effect that will last for 2 weeks. Worried supermarket proprietors called for police support as crowds grew and scuffles even broke out. The police public relations officer, the acting Inspector Rodney Innes, was among the officers on mobile patrol this morning. He was very concerned about what he saw.
Patrols have been on the road. We've been dispatching officers to assist various supermarkets and mini-marts with crowd control matters. Personally, I've been on the road and I've stopped at a few establishments from Popular in Kendall Hill, Cherish in Swan Street, Jordan's in Fairchild Street, and Chanel's in Colmar. All of them have the same problem. There are people congregating in mass, I mean close like sardines. They're not acknowledging the 6-foot distance protocol. There have been cases where persons have been fighting for trolleys and pushing to get in front of each other. Scores and scores of people trying to enter the supermarket at the same time. You know, a situation of panic. And they don't need to panic. We've spoken to most of the managers. Many of them have requested the assistance of police officers to allow some sort of order at the entrances. We have tried to assist how best we could, but that is not something that can be sustained. Most managers have been asked to get the private security on board, uniform private security, so that they can lend a hand in sorting how persons should enter and exit their establishment. But Stetson, what we want from the police force to let members of the public know is that we are battling a pandemic. And certainly the protocol, the health protocol of maintaining that 6-feet distance between you and the other person must be maintained. There's no need to panic. Managers have said that their stores have more than enough to supply everyone. So we just need to be orderly and everyone will get through.
And whereas supermarkets had promised to allocate a period early this morning for health practitioners on the front line, a medical doctor tells Stockholm Network News of leaving home at 6:30 a.m. in order to be early in line. But after being confronted with scenes of what she called chaos and standing in line for 3 hours, she left with no groceries and a lot of frustration, worried as well about the health risk in such crowded circumstances.
Frustrated, sad, and worried. Frustrated because, we did get there early. We got into line. I was hoping that at one point we were mentioning we thought they might have more security to make sure that the lines were kept, in order. Sad because you saw that they were not keeping that as it should. You got into the line, you were there early, so you would have thought you would have gone in that order. And worried because, of course, there's no way the 6-foot, distance was being kept in order. And 2, because everybody was talking, shouting, and clustered up. Well, I moved away because I was trying to keep the 6-foot, distance. And I moved away because of how it was. Chaos. If you could put it that way, chaos. But because of my concern, I actually put on my mask. Because I carry a mask in my bag.
And speaking of VOB's getting down to Brasstacks calling program, the acting Prime Minister Czar Bradshaw stressed the measures are absolutely necessary.
Based on the medical evidence that we have been presented with and all of the data, we felt it was in the best interest of the country to be able to do the shutdown at this time. And because people were not adhering to the warnings, it made it particularly difficult for the Ministry of Health and the health officials to be able to manage the situation properly. We accept that, yes, people have rushed out to the supermarkets and to the various concessionary places to be able to purchase items. We regret that people are not adhering to the social distancing. But I believe the situation could have been far worse as well if we did not take steps at this point in time. All of the persons who operate businesses have said the same thing to us. They are very concerned not just about the public, but they are concerned about their own workers. And I want the caller to understand as well that this is a public health emergency. He's spoken about disaster emergency management, but this is really a public health emergency situation that we are dealing with. And at all times, we've been guided, and the Ministry of Health has been involved in the decision-making process to guide us as to what was necessary at each step of the way. We are doing things because we are guided by the persons who know better than we do. The fact is that there are 24-hour curfews in about 7 Caribbean countries. And in the lead-up to the curfew hour, there were backups at supermarkets in all of the territories. Barbados is no exception. It is yes, perhaps seen by some as a risk, but it is a risk, I think, that when we look at the danger of allowing people to just continue as though it is business as normal, it is a difficult for us. We cannot allow it to continue.
Acting Prime Minister Czar Bradshaw in the Lunchtime Edition.
And the Lunchtime Edition comes to you with the kind compliments of CIBC First Caribbean and the Insurance Corporation of Barbados. Always there when you need us most.
When we use our passion to create something special, we cherish the experience that brings the result. It isn't always smooth sailing, but that's the beauty of it. Because through experience and the help of knowledgeable partners, we learn and grow together. And we dream bolder dreams for the future, confident that your passion and our expertise will bring an ever bright tomorrow. ICBL, always there when you need us most.
The Attorney General, Dale Marshall, has promised that security officers and others in areas considered essential will get passes to move around. And speaking separately to Starcom Network News, Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Inda Weir, also gave the assurance the farming sector is being treated as an essential service, and people, including the workers at the Portville Sugar Factory, will get passes to allow them to be mobile during the curfew.
Persons at Portville Factory should by now or should be in the process of also receiving those passes that are required for them to be on the road. All of the feed suppliers in Barbados, including the lone feed manufacturer in Barbados, have also been given exemptions. The feed suppliers were allowed to open from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., where farmers can still have access to feed because you don't want the animals to die.
Quickly now around the region and the world, another person has died of COVID-19 in Trinidad and Tobago, bringing the total number of deaths there from the virus so far to 6. In addition to this, 3 COVID-19 cases were confirmed yesterday, bringing the number of confirmed cases in Trinidad to 97. 44 Grenadians have been charged in the last 24 hours for breaking a government-imposed 24-hour curfew to help slow the spread of the coronavirus. The Cayman Islands Premier Alden McLaughlin says curfew measures across the territory will be extended and toughened following the confirmation of 5 new COVID-19 cases there. The government of the Bahamas signaled it will not be accepting people infected with COVID-19 from ships that have been stranded in Bahamian waters, despite a Coast Guard bulletin that foreign flag vessels should seek help from countries in which they are registered. The Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, appealing for $94.8 million from donors to fund priority public health measures to help Caribbean and Latin American countries face the coronavirus. The White House expected to advise Americans in the coronavirus hotspots to wear cloth masks or scarves in public to help stop the virus spread. And in other news, the Ghana Elections Commission today agreed to a national recount of ballots cast in the March 2nd general election. Our top stories. Widespread scenes of chaos and panic at supermarkets across Barbados today as anxious shoppers try to stock up on supplies ahead of today's 5 p.m. shutdown of food stores as a 24-hour curfew goes into effect for 2 weeks. The acting Prime Minister warns the situation might have been much worse had the government not taken action. In the lunchtime edition of the latest from Starcom Network News, Starcom Network, a member of the OCM Group, and Stetson Babb. Good afternoon.
The latest came to you with the kind compliments of CIBC First Caribbean and the Insurance Corporation of Barbados. Always there when you need us most.
In times like these, when the world around us is changing and our country is faced with uncertainty, we provide the answers to your questions. Bring calm and hope into your life. Starcom Network, urging you to play your part in preventing the spread of the coronavirus across VOB country. Stay at home. 92.9 FM. We are everywhere.
Sagicor wishes to urge clients to use any of their convenient online payment options in observance of the government's restrictions on non-essential business activities. Arrangements are also in place to manage claims and renewals at a safe distance. For detailed instructions, please visit www.sagicor.com/inthistogether or call 431-2800. Also note that roadside assistance has been temporarily suspended for your safety during this time. Sagicor General urges you to be careful and stay safe.
In compliance with the 24-hour curfew, instituted by the government of Barbados, Starcom Network Incorporated will at this time put a hold on our Destination Disney promotion until the curfew has been lifted. Thank you for your support and understanding. We encourage you to stay safe and adhere to all of the government's safety measures at this time.
The management and staff of Unicommer Barbados Limited wish to advise customers that due to the measures implemented by the government of Barbados, our Quartz, Quartz Optical, Quartz Ready Cash and Radio Shack retail stores will be closed until further notice. We sincerely apologize for any inconvenience. Unicommer encourages all Barbadians to stay safe during this time. We can get through this together. We urge the public to stay tuned to the media for updates on our operations.
Guardian Group wishes to advise valued clients of Guardian Life of the Caribbean Limited and Guardian General Insurance Limited that we have adjusted the delivery of our clients' services. Our offices at Infield House, Upper Colomorock, are now closed due to the legislative guides of the authorities. We remain committed to serving you and wish to advise on alternative ways to make payments, claims, and transact any other insurance business by visiting www.myguardiangroup.com for further guidance. Thank you for your understanding, and we urge everyone to stay safe.
In critical times, you need critical news. The Nation Publishing will now be open from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. to service all your advertising and subscription needs. Can't come to us? Then give us a call before 5 p.m. at 430-5504 or 5500 for subscription queries, 430-5517 for advertising, or 430-1234 for our editorial department. You can also email us at either subscriber, advertise, or editorial at nationnews.com. Nation News, your time, your way.
The public is asked to note that the opening hours of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital Pharmacy have been reduced. The pharmacy will now be open from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. on weekdays and weekends. This is in response to the government of Barbados' declaration of a public health emergency and the subsequent announcement of a curfew from Saturday, March 28th until Tuesday, April 14th from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. for all residents except those who form part of the essential services. Persons visiting the pharmacy are reminded to observe a 3-foot or 1 meter space between themselves and others, and after submission of the prescription, to return to their seat until their name is called.
Have you ever felt overwhelmed or frustrated when faced with problems with your computers and devices? Don't worry, it happens to the best of us. That's why we at TechPals.com connect you with highly skilled IT experts to give you immediate help with computers, smartphones, tablets, and more with just a few clicks. We match you with your preferred specialist to give you live assistance wherever you are in the world. Trade panic for peace of mind with TechPals.com. Visit us online at TechPals.com.
Massey United wishes to inform its customers that based on the advice of the authorities, our accident and breakdown response service will be suspended from the 2nd of April 2020 until such time as it is deemed safe to resume. Should customers have an accident, they are urged to contact our emergency number at 230-4997. They will be required to take photos, information on the other party, and submit their claim online at www.masseyunitedinsurance.com. We thank you for your understanding as our actions are in the interest of keeping you and our Massey United Insurance family safe.
Want the latest news without having to leave your home or office? Stay exactly where you are. Allow Nation News to come to you. Subscribe now via phone by calling 430-5503 or 430-5504, or simply send an email to subscribers@nationnews.com. Now you can have news on the go and in your home with our digital and print subscriptions. Subscribe today to stay informed with Nation News. News you can trust.
Wow.
Wow! Wow! The bigger the craving, the bigger the wow! Introducing the Wow Box by KFC. The Colonel's original recipe sandwich. One finger-licking good piece of chicken and crispy French fries for that wow price of $15.95. Get even more wow with our Wow Bucket. 8 pieces of finger-licking good chicken, 4 medium French fries, and 4 buttermilk biscuits for the $50 wow! That's a savings of $24. The KFC Wow Box and the Wow Bucket. Worth every wow. KFC. It's finger-licking good. Wow!
Okay, well, we continue to get reaction here on this edition of Down to Brasstacks. So some of what's been said before. You know that we continue to have a situation out there on the streets where there are a lot of people lining up to get into the supermarkets. The government has basically responded. We've had some officials of government here on the program. In particular, we've got the acting Prime Minister, Santia Bradshaw, the Attorney General, Dale Marshall, and we also have the COVID Czar, Richard Carter. But, ladies and gentlemen, you should hear some of the reaction that I've had here. One says this is a major mistake by a government that has so far not panicked. Italy and France are also on lockdowns of the whole country, but the pharmacies and supermarkets remain open. The answer is to extend food shopping hours to about 10 p.m. during the shutdown. After a few days, the consumer panic will cease. The new measures are bringing panic to the country. The person feels that the government has created a run on the supermarket. And if you say you're closing a bank, everybody wants their money now. If you say the banks are open, people leave their money in. The government has destabilized itself and will have to reverse course this weekend in the judgment of that particular person. Here is another one which I got. This person said, and this was sent to me at 12:30, he said, I'm here in a line since 8 o'clock at Massey Warren's. The video does not relate to Massey, because they sent a video just before that. People are orderly here. But the person expresses the view that it appears from what the Prime Minister has said, that the decision was taken to, according to this person, punish the public for a few who did foolishness. It's a blunder in their view. The person says they believe it will get worse just before closure. And we shouldn't let the powers that be minimize this situation. Somebody else makes a query. They say bakeries are among the list of essential services that can remain open. But the public cannot go to buy the bread. Why then are the bakeries open and essential? Same thing for egg producers. Are the eggs to stay out and rot, or can they be delivered by the producer, or can the public go to buy? Valid questions. The person says, mind you, I fully understand the seriousness of COVID-19, and I have my own share of anxiety. Okay, so those are some of the reactions that we've had to the government's response to all that has been happening here. Just let me say to you, those of you who want to find out how to get these passes for caregivers, someone sent it to me, but I think ideally I need to just make sure that that is authentic before I put it out. So let me check on that. Do we have any comments from the panel? Prime Minister, are you there? Is the acting Prime Minister there? Hello? In the meantime, let's get a call, and we'll see if we can reestablish that connection with these government officials. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yeah, I have a concern here. Now, the public of Barbados went to the polls in 2018 and voted a government which consisted of 30 members, 26 which are ministers. Now, right now, Barbados is in a crisis. And I heard the dear Prime Minister 2 weeks ago say all hands should be on deck. We take off our political hats, and she expects everybody to give a helping hand. Now, during this crisis, I'm only seeing 2 or 3 ministers performing or up front. You get the Prime Minister herself. Right now we have
David don't want to cut off the caller.
We have Santia.
Just give her, let her land, okay, and then they will come to you. Yes, you were saying. Yeah.
Sergeant Bradshaw. We are seeing Mr. Bostic. We are seeing the Attorney General.
You want to see the entire cabinet? You want to see the entire cabinet?
No. What about the other ministers and helping their constituents? When there is a Christmas party, you see all of them. When there is when they're giving out school stuff, you're seeing all of them. Why we are not seeing them now? We are not saying that they have.
So you are saying that with COVID-19 and all that is being said about it, you would like to see them in the constituencies?
Yes, helping some of the same old people.
Well, let the minister respond to that. Let the Attorney General respond.
Yes. First of all, I thank the caller, and we always love criticism. We're not afraid of it. Let me say that I don't want people to think that our colleagues are not hard at work, even though the voices of the government at this time may appear to be few. That is not to suggest at all that the others are not laboring with equal energy. But when we manage a crisis, the important thing is always that you don't need everybody to be speaking, because at that point in time, then chaos and miscommunication arises. We've managed this in exactly the same way that we deal with any other crisis. You have a
no, that is not good enough.
Just hold on,
ma'am. We cannot manage a. I appreciate that your comment is twofold. So let me say first of all, your criticism was that you're not hearing the others.
She wants to see you in the constituencies.
No, I understand.
I'm not seeing them.
Let me please. I'm going to answer, but I got the impression that she said she's only seeing or hearing the acting Prime Minister, the Prime Minister, the Attorney General, Minister of Health.
Mr. Bostic.
Minister of Health. In trying to deal with this issue, we had to carve out those central departments, those central ministries that have day-to-day responsibility. So obviously, law and order is involved. The Prime Minister is obviously involved. Health is at the center of this. Everything revolves around health. So you will only at this point in time likely be seeing those few people in the public eye. But let me say, for example, that the Minister of Agriculture has been hard at work making sure that the entire agriculture sector continues.
Ma'am, just let him speak, and then
so
if we need to come back.
Every single ministry, and every single minister has an important role to play in this. But because of that role, they may just not have the opportunity to be in the front line. But can you imagine Minister Humphrey, who's responsible for the port and the blue economy? He's losing sleep every day because we have a number of cruise ships out there. The port still has to function. Kerry Simmons, the tourism industry has completely collapsed. And so he now has to put other things in place and deal with the airport and so on. So absolutely every single one of us is focusing on his ministry's component. Regrettably, they're not in the public side, but that doesn't mean that they're not working hard. As for seeing them in their constituencies, I must tell you that in this crisis, all of us have been working 20-hour days. And we've said to them, including me, that we need to be out there more often, but at this point in time, the national interest has to be focused on saving all of Barbados. I'm sure that as the weeks go by, you will see an increased presence, but right now, all hands on deck really means all hands focused on the COVID fight. And I know that there have been some initiatives. Certainly the government has put some programs in place to make sure that the neediest in the community, we've identified the 1,500 most needy families. That could not have been done without the participation of the members of Parliament. We prepared a number of care packages. All of the MPs have had the responsibility for making sure those care packages reach the people in greatest need over the weekend. For myself, I am struggling to get water in all kinds of parts of St. Joseph, while at the same time dealing with the COVID issues. So I apologize if you think that we are not as visible as we should be, but this is a difficult time, and I hope that you'll allow us to get on with the mission critical stuff that we have to do. Mindful, of course, that all of our efforts are at securing every Barbadian, whether they're from St. John or St. Joseph, St. Peter or St. Lucie.
Okay, this question of the passes for emergency passes for caregivers, I'd like this. I'd like some information on this for the public. This is important. I have something here called emergency.pass@barbados.gov.bb. This is the email address, but I just need this confirmed. Okay. Yes. Good morning. Good afternoon. Let's take another call. Hello?
Yeah, David?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to make an intervention. I wanted to just
Minister Bradshaw?
I just wanted to let the country know that while we took the break, I consulted with the Attorney General and a couple of the stakeholders, and based on basically what is happening in terms of people outside of the supermarket, we decided to extend the curfew hour until 8 p.m. with the understanding that the supermarkets can now be advised to open until 5, and it would give the opportunity to the shoppers as well as to the staff of the supermarket to be able to get home in a reasonable time. I think you may be aware that a number of them had the concessions granted till 5 o'clock previously, but some of them had decided that they would close a bit earlier. So we're giving the concession to allow those persons, particularly the staff and the shoppers now, to be able to get home in a reasonable time.
All right, so the supermarkets will still close at 5, but the curfew,
they will close at 5.
But the curfew will kick in at 8, so that the people who are working will have adequate time to get home.
Correct.
That's exactly it.
Okay.
And David, just to be clear, the new restrictions take effect from 6 this evening. So supermarkets could always have opened until 5. Okay?
Yes.
You with me?
Right.
But some of them would have taken the decision that because between 5 and 6 just leaves them an hour to close, clean up, all that kind of stuff, then to try to get off the road by 6 o'clock. So they took the decision to close earlier so that they could perhaps more orderly sort themselves out, secure the premises, and then get staff home. So this, we feel, is an opportunity. Give it until 8 so that it gives them the extra breathing space. And we hope that they will open up their operations for a little bit longer to help to release some of the crash.
So the big story now today is that the curfew is extended. The curfew will kick in at 8 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock. That's what.
Yes, that'll be it.
Okay, let's take another call. Hello? Down to Brasstacks.
Yeah, David, it's Busy Williams here.
Yes, Busy.
I understand that an appeal is out to have Digicel turn back on phones that were automatically switched off.
Yes.
What I would like to say is this. Nobody made a conscious effort to go and switch off anybody at Digicel. The system is set up so that when people do not pay their bills over a period of time, the switch off is automatic. So no management at Digicel made a conscious decision to switch off anybody. But Digicel is a company that has always been it tries its best to be the best corporate citizen possible. So a decision has been made with the permission of the Attorney General to go back to work and override the system, so people can have back their phones until the end of the shutdown period. Now, I am appealing to Barbadians. Please do not abuse the system. Please do not, because your phone has been turned back on, please do not abuse data and use it to watch movies and all kinds of foolishness. The company is trying its best to be the best possible service provider, and this is the reason we appreciate the business that has been placed with Digicel over the years by people of Barbados, and so this is the reason we are going to do whatever we can to keep people connected and informed. Please do not abuse it. That's all I would like to say.
Thank you. And you are speaking in your capacity as it relates to Digicel?
As a director of Digicel and and Williams Industries is quite a significant shareholder of the company.
Okay.
In fact, to be honest with you, I really brought Digicel to Barbados originally. So the company is very dear to my heart. It's done remarkable service for Barbados, and I want to assure the Barbadian public that there was no management decision made to turn off people in this crisis. It was done automatically by the computer system. And we have to take people back now to override the system and put people back into service. There will be a formal announcement from Digicel about 3 o'clock this evening, another one at 6 o'clock, and it's also going to be announced on social media. But I was asked to make an immediate statement via the call-in programs because the company was getting a lot of negative flack on the call-in program.
Okay.
So I've decided to do it.
It wasn't getting a lot of negative flack. One person called to say that this was a problem that some people were experiencing and they wanted to know whether the government could have used its influence to try to get the telecoms to ease up on these shut-offs. So there wasn't a lot of talk on it, though.
A lady called me repeatedly and asked if we could possibly do something to take people off the road.
Okay.
Now, there are 5 ways that people can pay their Digicel bill online. And they can pay the bills through the post office as well.
Okay.
So it was surprising to me that so many people were not had not paid their bills.
Okay, well, you've clarified the situation for us. Thank you very much.
And Dennis, I just want to take the opportunity to thank Digicel and to thank Busy as well for the intervention and just clarifying the situation. Again, I think it speaks volumes to the fact that we have so many stakeholders in Barbados that are trying their best to work with government during this difficult time. And this is just a further example of when we reach out, people do respond to try to ease the pressure off of Barbadians. So again, thank you on behalf of Barbadians and the users of Digicel at this point in time.
Yes. Somebody wanted to find out what is the position with wayside vegetable and fruit stalls. Can they still operate?
Going forward, and I always say let's go. Sorry, David Dale here. Let's go back to first principles, okay?
Yeah.
And the principles that we've applied have been to minimize human contact. While wayside vendors were not specially mentioned in the original directive, we've permitted wayside vendors to operate. It would be odd for us to allow Maxi and Popular and all those places to sell, but a farmer who farms and then has his produce selling outside the roadside, we tell him no. So we've been allowing those people to operate, but going into this new regime, as of the new restrictions tonight, I'm afraid no. We are telling Barbadians that they simply have to be off of the road. So we're not going to be giving wayside vendors that opportunity as we had before.
Okay, let's take another call.
But what I can tell you, though, is that we will also, tonight at the meeting, we're discussing, obviously, allowing people who deliver the groceries, vegetables, things like chickens and fish, to be able to find a system to be able to let them get their deliveries to persons. Because obviously we still allow the farms to be able to operate, and also the poultry farms. So we are mindful that there are people who rely on those deliveries, but we will speak about it later tonight and we'll advise the country at the earliest opportunity.
This person says that the iMart pharmacy at Hagar Hall is one that says that they won't be able to continue the delivery service. So they've apologized to the public for any inconvenience. And this writer says that they thought that the above is a necessary service for trying to keep people from going out if companies have delivery services. Now, I remember that originally there was some provision for delivery services. In this
Yes,
new
David,
dispensation, does that change?
David, we originally allowed delivery services, but when we took the decision to tighten the restrictions further, the reason for limiting the delivery services to pharmacy only is because medication is one of those things that you simply have to get. Not that you don't have to get food, but in order to do a fulfillment request for food, you require a much larger operation. And therefore, when we closed supermarkets at that time, we took the position. It's hard, painful, but we're closing you down, and therefore, delivery services of groceries would have been prohibited simply because the supermarkets themselves would have been closed. In order to be able to do fulfillment, you would have had to bring in people and so on. But as the acting Prime Minister just said, we are looking to see how we can facilitate those enterprises going forward. If, based on the science, we can be convinced that there is minimal risk by having people in the enterprise packaging and fulfilling groceries and then delivering orders and making payments and so on, if that can be done within what worked for us, then we're going to try to see how we can accommodate it. But the reason the food delivery stopped was because we closed supermarkets, leaving only pharmacies open.
Okay, now this person says that as a young citizen of this country, I am in awe at the way that my fellow comrades have chosen to handle such a crisis. In my humble opinion, the administration doesn't need to be in a position to be defending themselves at this time. There will be plenty of time for that later. Bajans simply need to listen, observe, think critically, obey, and act more responsibly. Persons need to stop abusing the privileges they are being granted and cooperate with the administration that we selected. Barbadians are simply acting out of emotion and not out of critical thinking and problem solving. And I bring that to you because in all of this you have people who are going to be critical, and then there are going to be people who are supportive. And the whole idea here is that we bring in that balance. This is down to Brasstacks.
David, as a former director of youth affairs, I applaud that comment by the young contributor, because that is all that we've been asking for from the very beginning: observation of the rules and the principles that have been set out to protect all of us, to ignore the selfish behavior that we may be tempted to embark on, and to act with compassion and reason and support of our fellow men. If persons follow those basic principles, and those are basic principles of living in any society, then some of the things that we've observed, we would not have been observing.
How difficult is it to try to mobilize people towards this kind of action in a country that has long been complaining about lawlessness on the streets with the ZRs and now additional drivers, a country that has seen motorcyclists wheeling all over the place. When you look at the issues of discipline and what people have been complaining about in Barbadian society in recent years, it has reached a point where one would expect that there would have been a high degree of defiance against following these particular rules. That should not have taken anybody in government by surprise.
No, it did not. It would not have taken persons in government by surprise. It should not have taken anybody by surprise, because indiscipline is present in every society, even in those authoritarian societies that people have pointed to. We've seen levels of indiscipline, and we've seen people having to be carted off to prison or worse places because of defiance of public orders. So it is not surprising, but this is a situation where we have to be careful not to paint the entire society as a consequence of the behavior of what I still consider the minority. So those guys who are really as a consequence of the behavior of what I still consider the minority, one of those guys who are really as a consequence of the behavior of what I still consider the minority, those guys who are really prepared to report them. So we are promoting discipline as the way that will get us out of this.
Okay. Let's take another call. Hello?
Hey, hello.
Yes, down to Brasstacks.
Hey, no, just real quick. No, the supermarkets open, great, but the banks are closed, and the banks are only being allowed to operate the ATMs. But I've been to my bank, at least 3 of their branches, and tried 7 of their machines, and none of them take deposits. No, the reason why I try and deposit is because I followed the instructions before, staying off the road, only going, leaving home when it's absolutely necessary. And it only became necessary after the complete shutdown was announced. So no, I have these checks to deposit. I can't deposit them, and I don't have money on me to last me for the next 2 weeks. So what am I to do? Where should I go? What's supposed to happen? Because the machines are not taking the deposit, and I don't understand how it is that the bank is supposed to be operating the ATM machines, but the machines don't take the deposit. So,
David, let me just interject here. We to the caller, I'm not sure what business you're in, but I know that we've been in discussions, both the Attorney General and myself, regarding with the banking.
Hold on, caller, just hold on. Caller, hold on. The acting Prime Minister wants to know what business you are in.
I am in IT. I am in IT support.
Okay.
I support the businesses and stuff.
Okay.
Right. So we've been in discussions with the Banking Association regarding, again, some accommodations that
we're getting some feedback. We're getting some feedback from your end. I don't know if a radio is on or something like that. Perhaps it is better to use the handset in the phone.
Right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's good.
Right. So I was just saying to you that the Attorney General and I have been in discussions with the bankers with a view to being able to find mechanisms for persons who they may be able to get the payroll for this week, but we may need to facilitate going forward, having specified times for persons to be able to conduct business in this way. So I understand the caller's concern, but I just want to reassure him that a lot of these things we are basically working through with the bankers to be able to find solutions for specified groups of persons. For instance, we have had farmers who have reached out and they've said, we need to pay workers next week. We need to have access to capital and stuff from the banks, and we're putting arrangements in place to do so. Again, the country needs to be reassured constantly, I believe, that we are not planning for today alone. And there may be some inconveniences. None are intended. But what we have to do is to protect ourselves from this virus as much as possible. So I really regret that he is so inconvenienced and so irate, but I just want to give him the assurance that we're really trying to work through with all of our stakeholders to be able to address a number of these issues as they arise.
Okay. Thank you very much. Down to Brasstacks. Hello.
Good morning or good evening. Good afternoon, David, and good afternoon to the guest. David, I went to Popular in Spooner's Hill around 9 o'clock this morning. It was packed with people. If they had to social distance like they needed to do, like I really need to be protected because I'm alone in my house and I'm making sure. All I needed was 5 things at the most. But I think that it was not well organized. And on behalf of the government, I think they should have given people 72 hours. And I'll tell you why. Not everybody has a $2,000 check that can go out there and buy what they wanted a month ago. Because some people didn't even wait for it to get here, like me. We knew it was in other parts of the world, and we knew it would eventually get here.
It's David.
Okay?
Yeah.
Dennis, I just want to interject.
No, let me... Just hold on, please. Caller?
I just want to...
Yes. Minister, go ahead.
I just want to say to the caller, I really do understand the concern. I want to first of all let her know that there is in this country enough food in Barbados that will be accessible to people over the coming weeks and months. But we have to do it in an orderly and in a responsible manner. The first thing I want to reiterate is that this virus, as I said yesterday, is not playing. It is taking lives of people. It is capturing hundreds of thousands of people all across the world, and Barbados is no different. And I can tell you that the number of cases in Barbados has now continued to rise. This morning, the chief medical officer has reported to me that they have recorded an additional 6 new positive tests for the coronavirus. Barbadians, we are now over the 50 mark. What more is it going to take to get Barbadians to sit up and take stock? I understand the concern, but now is not the time to finger point and say whether the government acted swiftly or it didn't act swiftly. We need, as a country, to stand up against the lawlessness in society. There's no dispute that we have done all of the messaging that we had to get to the various demographics in our society. And this is not a test of the government of Barbados. We have passed many tests, economic and other ways. But this is a challenge for Barbados and for Barbadians. Can we do this or can we not do this? Can Barbados contain and overcome COVID-19? I say yes, we can. But we can't do it in a state of panic. We must do it in a state of calm with the reassurance to the people of Barbados that this is the right thing at the time. I said before, David, and to the caller, we have taken on board in the break the concerns expressed. We've looked at the numbers and stuff that are out there. We've said instead of shutting down at the 5 p.m. and businesses being able to determine their hours a bit earlier to meet the curfew at 6, we've given the extension to allow the curfew to now kick in at 8 p.m. But I want to appeal to Barbadians. We can do no better at this point in time. If we could, we certainly would have done so then. Okay?
Well, that's sobering information that you've
David,
just presented there. Yes.
David?
Yes.
All I'm saying is I was managed, trust me, I got there at 9 o'clock. By 10 o'clock, I had what I wanted. Those lines, if they were distancing themselves, would have gone all the way up to Warren's, Massey, or all the way downtown if they did distance, and I wasn't getting in that line. I asked 3 police officers. They don't know. All they know is that the line starts at the end. I said, but aren't they making it convenient for the pensioners and the disabled and for the essential service providers? Isn't there another line? There's no sign. There's no nothing. You're just telling me to get to the back of the line.
Okay.
Well, I walked around, and someone came out, took my order, took my money, went inside, and brought me back what I wanted within 10 minutes.
All right. Well, thank you very much for drawing it to our attention. But this situation has created another one. Here it is. The Minister of Energy and Water Resources, Wilfred Abrams, is appealing to the public to stop hoarding liquid petroleum gas cylinders, LPG cylinders. Mr. Abrams stated, currently, the LPG marketers have adequate supplies of gas to service the market for several weeks. In addition, regular ships are scheduled to replenish supplies, and these supplies are expected to continue without interruption. He goes on to say that the hoarding of cylinders by the public creates unnecessary stress on the systems as it contributes to a shortage of bottles for refilling and distribution. He added that the sale of LPG cylinders will be restricted to 1 cylinder per person, effective immediately. The public is also asked to return empty bottles to gas stations as soon as possible. This is down to Brasstacks. Good afternoon. I was just making the observation that 52 cases is just showing you where this is going in Barbados. And really and truly, you really, everything needs to be done to try to contain the spread of this virus. And it is, for us, a real worry to have 52 cases now. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
Yes, hello.
You're on the air.
Hello?
You are on the air.
Hi, I just want to make a suggestion. I don't have a criticism.
Yeah, we encourage suggestions. We are not all about criticism, you know.
Okay, good. So, the supermarket. The supermarket should remain open. Let's be honest. Not everybody is going to be able to buy everything they need for the 2 weeks. And the system, which I think can work for both the supermarkets and the banks, is a call-in or email system in which you place your order, and then they will assign you a time and call and tell you when you can come and pick up your order. If you do it in the alphabetical way, someone who is down by the Z in the alphabet might need groceries before someone who is in the A and the B section. So I might not need groceries. I went shopping. I haven't left my house for 3 weeks now, but I did 2 deliveries, and now they have stopped, so I can't do any more deliveries. But I have 5 people in my house, and as much as I'm trying to control the way we're all eating, we still have to eat. And I am going to need groceries soon. So closing the supermarkets for 2 weeks, some people are going to starve.
I don't think if you had listened to the program earlier, you would have heard the acting Prime Minister say that discussions are ongoing with the relevant parties to work out a schedule here that will not necessarily see them close for 2 weeks.
I was making a suggestion so you didn't have the deliveries, because that would put a burden on the bottom line for the supermarkets if they have to deliver to people.
Yeah, somebody says, excuse me a minute, somebody says this beep is an annoying beep. I don't know what is causing it, so we will have to work with it as it is. My apologies. Yes, ma'am, you were saying.
That's okay. I have been hearing it for a while now.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying that it would put a burden on the bottom line for supermarkets if they have to do the deliveries. But if you have a system where the supermarket assigns a time for the person to come and collect their groceries, then it's an in and out system, because the people inside the employees will package the groceries for the person, and they will show up, let's say, at 3:30. They would either have paid online or they pay when they get there, but it's just them and the supermarket. There's no line, there's no crowd, and they go away, and the next person shows up, say, 5 minutes later. And not everyone is going to need groceries all the time like that. People are hoarding the stores right now because they're afraid of the 2 weeks that they won't have groceries. But if you have a system such like that, then the supermarkets would remain open only for the employees to do the stocking, the packaging, and then people can come down at their allotted times and collect their groceries.
Okay.
I also
and you could do that with the banks as well.
I just want to reiterate to the caller that, again, in every other country where there has been a shutdown, provision has always been made thereafter for limited access to the supermarkets, for deliveries, for e-commerce. Barbados is no different. And I just want to let you reassure you that all of these things are being considered. As I said before, you may not have heard it because you may not have joined in late, but we're in discussions with the various stakeholders with a view to now working through all of these issues to ensure that the supermarkets can be able to deliver to the people. People can call in, whether it's online or whether they call on the phone, and that we put systems that are safe for the workers who will obviously, their staff are going to still have to come back out, or we're going to have, delivery persons to have to do it. We have to put the necessary protocols in place to be able to ensure that people are compliant with those protocols as well. But I think, again, this is in the best interest of all to be able to bring Barbados to a halt, allow for us to manage the situation and to contain the cases that we have presently. And just for clarity, one of the persons of the 6 was someone who was actually retested. So I guess you can say there's 5 new cases, but one person that was retested would have tested positive.
Pardon me? What was that last point?
There are 6 cases, but there are 5 persons who are new. And one of those persons out of the remaining person would been retested for COVID.
So our total numbers would therefore be?
40.
We began at 46 this morning, right? So then you have, based upon these additional ones here, but when you throw in this angle here with a retest,
an additional 5 would put it at 51.
51.
Right,
but
51.
I'm just making a point that one of them is actually a person who was retested.
Okay. Well, and when you say retested,
can I answer that, David?
Expand.
So we, if someone is in the system that we are treating, we require 2 consecutive negative tests before that person is discharged, just to ensure that the person is free of the virus. So all of the persons who are currently in isolation are being tested periodically to determine if they are free of the virus. So what we would have had is a report of the number of positive tests. So this would be someone who has recorded the positive test but is still currently in isolation.
Okay.
So it's not a new case.
Okay, thanks. And I think I've figured out why we were getting the beep. Once somebody puts their particular call on hold, it causes a beep in the system. So one of the three, I believe it might have been you, Richard Carter, you might have been off the line. And once you are off the line and you put your call on hold, it will create a beep on the air. So we need to try to avoid that. Thanks very much. Down to Brasstacks. Hello?
Good afternoon. One quick question to the panel. There are those supermarkets pharmacies that who also sell other items, right?
Yes.
General items. Are they restricted from selling those items? Or they could just sell from the pharmacy?
Are the pharmacies restricted from selling items other than what are seen as pharmaceuticals?
We haven't placed any restrictions on the pharmacies as to what they sell. So they can sell. We've said that the pharmacies can sell. The pharmacies are open.
Okay.
So there's no restriction presently on what they sell.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Down to Brasstacks. Hello. Well, I'm still getting the beep, so something else is at work here. It's not as strong as before, but it's still there. Hello.
Hello, Brasstacks?
Yes, Brasstacks. How can I help?
David, I just want to make a comment. You said it wasn't all criticism, so I'm calling here from New York to let know the Attorney General did a good job here.
Come speak into the phone directly because you sound a little off mic. It's not the best.
I had you on speaker, that's why. I'm sorry, David.
Okay.
Yeah, you said it's not all criticism, so I'm calling from New York here to congratulate the Air Marshal and the acting Prime Minister. I think you're doing a good job.
And what aspect of the job would you consider to be good?
The way you come to the media and let people know the awareness of what's going on in a timely manner. I would think, because I listen to Brasstacks a lot. I think he's doing a good job of letting the public know what's going on, and he seems sincere about it.
Yeah, well, I have somebody else here who's saying that they applaud the government's transparency on the matter. It's a difficult time, and you're going to find yourself in a situation where the choices that you make, there will always be alternative perspectives on those choices, and that's where we are. We have to entertain the praise and the criticism as well, and to take that criticism, the government certainly has to take the criticism in a way that says, look, if we've done something wrong, then you've got to improve on it. So I hope that is the vein in which...
Marshall before on different matters, but this one, he's doing a hell of a good job, I must tell you.
All right, well, let's get some other views.
Before with appointments and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, David, thanks a lot.
Thanks for calling. What you're calling from New York, though? You need to tell me what's happening there.
And I was supposed to come into Barbados on the 21st, like council, and the stores are designed along. But I'm retired now, so I just went up today to get a couple more stuff. But everything. The mayor said to wear a mask now. Everybody should wear a mask now or something covering their face.
Yes.
Things is rough. The next 2 weeks is going to tell. That's going to be the story. Getting worse.
Well, that's what the President of the United States said too.
Yeah. I lost. I'm hearing some friends of mine in the hospital in coma, but I can't confirm it yet.
Okay.
The guy PG, he died.
Yes.
So it's a bad situation. I think it passed me because I was sick at the end of January. So I think I didn't immune to it though.
Okay.
That's a joke. All right.
All right. Well, thanks for calling. And let the people in New York know, and other Barbadians outside of this country, that we are praying for them and as concerned about them as we are for the people who are living here. Down to Brasstacks. Hello. Yes,
David. Sorry.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that I think the Prime Minister and the Attorney General may have been inadvertently disconnected, so we're trying to have them reconnected again. And not to stop your calls, but the contribution from the caller from New York is really important in the sense of reminding us that we have before us images of what the future holds if we continue not to follow the rules that are being put in place. We are seeing what is happening in New York. We are seeing what is happening in Italy and Spain. So we are not going at this blind. We have an image of what the future holds of this disease if we are not disciplined.
Well, thanks for drawing that particular point to our attention. I have, looked at it as an issue that is not centered on Barbados alone, and it's very important that we keep foremost in the minds of the Barbadian public what's happening here, but how the disease is spreading in other countries as well. And the United States is one that we can relate to very easily because of all the contacts that we have with that country. And then further on is what's happening in Spain and what's happening in Italy. And, in Barbados, because of our demographics, we have to be exceedingly concerned. The rate of spread in Barbados as the COVID Czar, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, we are very concerned because, as I said, I believe it might have been in another forum. We have actually engaged the University of the West Indies, which has a number of epidemiologists and public health specialists, to do some modeling for us. And what those numbers show is very, very scary and very concerning.
What are they showing?
So, well, they're showing the potential for hundreds of deaths if we do not apply the discipline associated with physical distancing, apply the discipline with the protocols that we've been setting out. Now, models are just that. They're models, and they're not predictors, but they do give you a sense of what potentially could happen. And we have seen it actually happen in some of these places. The previous caller spoke about New York. New York has doubled the number of cases within the space of about a week. So that kind of exponential trajectory is a trajectory we've seen played out time and time again all over the world. And it is because of this, is because of knowing what is ahead of us if we don't exercise discipline, that we have to take the measures now. One of the previous callers suggested that we should have given Barbadians a week. We know that a day is causing a week's loss of time in terms of grappling with the epidemic. We've seen it repeatedly. And we do not have a week to give. We do not have a week to give to this epidemic because the consequences of being overrun with healthcare systems that we have, though they are good, they are not infinite. And we've seen first world countries overrun in terms of their capacity. We are seeing in New York, they're talking about maybe 6 days left in terms of their burn rate on ventilators. And we're talking about a time when supply chains are cut off, which makes us even more vulnerable in terms of us getting in the supplies that are necessary to manage this.
Well, is there a conscious decision to try to withhold from the Barbadian public the specifics of what the epidemiologists are saying? Are you afraid that will panic us?
No, I said the numbers are in the hundreds of what can happen now. The epidemiologists with all that they've done, they're constantly changing and remodeling based on information that as it evolves, because we are in the infancy, so to speak, of the epidemic, and people who do this type of modeling have to constantly revise the models based on the information that is being plugged into the system, because you only get out of the system information as accurate as what you plugged in. I also want to say, David, that we have to be careful when we are comparing the numbers of cases that we are seeing in some places. Barbados is testing at a much more aggressive and comprehensive rate than perhaps any other country in the Caribbean. I've seen figures that suggest that Barbados is testing about twice as many persons per capita as Trinidad, about probably 7 or 8 as many times per capita as Jamaica. So our testing, we have conducted, I believe it is probably close to 400 tests for COVID-19. So our rate of testing, and therefore our likelihood of identifying persons who are ill, is quite enhanced because of the degree of testing that we are doing.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Down to Brasstacks.
Hello?
Yes. Hello.
Hello, is
You're
it
on
Brasstacks?
Yes, you're on the air.
Yes, hi. I just want to give my contribution. And we have all the powers that are be back online listening. They said they lost the connection to the Prime Minister issue.
We're trying to get her back.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
The Prime Minister as well and everybody. Okay, good. All right. There'll be no time is short. Everybody want to get in their bit. So I'm going to be very brief. I just want to say the sudden news of, just like the shutdown, that is very, very hard on the public. Now, we heard everything that the gentleman before said, and we understand that this is serious time. This is nothing to play around with. But I also want to say, in doing that, we must be mindful of the culture. We must be mindful of our country. We must be mindful of the people that we're living and working amongst. And we're seeing everything happening in New York and everywhere else. For this situation, this warrants a day or two. I agree with the gentleman before, and please apologize. I apologize if I don't remember all the names in the correct order.
That was Mr. Carter.
Mr. Carter,
yeah.
I understand. A week would be too much. We are dealing with severe times. This is pressuring times. This is no joke. But we are dealing with a group of people, which and I know from our parents, everybody around, that these are people that warrant a little bit of update. You can't just spring one minute I'm hearing one thing tonight, this is a update, we're going to change this. In the morning, I hear this, we're going to change that. 2 minutes after I'm here, we're going to change that. I really don't know where's the real thing now.
So it sounds as though the government lacks a clear plan and is in a state of confusion. That's what you're saying.
That's right. Lacks a clear plan. We do understand that measures have to change drastically, suddenly, because of the situation. We've never had nothing in the world like this before. But I heard something 2 nights ago, and I hear something in the morning. Then 12 o'clock yesterday, I heard something. I really don't know what's going on.
Well, let the acting Prime Minister speak to you on that.
I'll just say this bit.
I think, caller, before you go on, I think it is important that you appreciate that the dynamics of this situation are such that they're constantly changing. And we therefore have to respond just as every other country in the world has had to respond to the situation as it changes. And we keep reiterating to the public to keep listening to all of the releases, to keep staying in touch with what is happening, not to be listening to any of the fake news, but to be paying attention carefully to what the government is saying, because things will continue to change as the statistics may unfold. Okay, so it is not that we understand that, it's not business as usual. We understand that people do not want to change the way in which they are accustomed to shopping, but we would not do this in ordinary times. And what I just want to reinforce to you, these are not ordinary things that we're dealing with.
All right. And while I do understand that, I'll let you go now. While I do understand that, that's what I clearly stated at the beginning of the statement. These are not ordinary times. But you also must be reminded that you are a government. We are looking to you. And while that you are a government, but yet human beings, we are looking for you to guide us and to further implement confidence and calm in us and stability. So while these are not ordinary times, I ask you, and you can probably look into it, you probably have made a decision and will stand by it, but you cannot enforce in less than 24 hours that we are going to have a shutdown. There is mass panic out there. People are more dying and at the hospitals from stress, panic attacks and all of that from this. Well, we know that they don't want to change their culture, but they have to be gradually put into this, although these are not ordinary times. A week will be too long to give them notice. 2 to 3 days, that's it. And you make it abundantly clear, like what you did on the news, and keep us up to date like you are doing constantly. But you have to give us a little time. Not today where these supermarkets are bowed down, where everybody jumping on top of each other and we look like we get there. No, that is not the way to do it. At appropriate time, 2 days. That's it. Make it clear. Repeat it. Send it on the radio. Keep doing your update. But not this way. That is not the way. I am telling you. Should this continue, it will not end well on the BLP. You can take my word for it. Thank you guys for listening.
Caller, before you
Thank
go,
you guys
again,
for listening. Yes, I'm listening.
I appreciate your concern. I really, really do. And I think you are sharing the concerns of average Barbadians. I just want to reinforce to you again, we would not take these measures if the situation did not warrant it. But as you said earlier in the program, we've had additional cases. We're also in a situation where we're balancing all of the variables from day to day. It is not going to be a situation where we can update, in the news every single night, because there are dynamics that change constantly that require us to reflect and to devise plans to be able to manage the situation. What I urge Barbadians to do is to stay in touch with the respective media houses, to look for the reliable sources so that they can get the information from government as it is released, rather than jumping to conclusions. We have your best interests at heart, but again, we would not take these measures if it was not absolutely necessary. Someone just sent me something from Ontario showing me lines at supermarkets in the state of Ontario, reinforcing to me as well that, the same thing is happening across the world. In large countries, if you look in the Caribbean, you're seeing the same thing, the same patterns manifesting itself. I even have noticed that there have been situations where the countries have shut down, but 2 or 3 days later they've reopened. They've reopened with guidelines. They didn't announce to the public that they were going to take these measures. We are actually talking the country through the fact that in a few days or so, we may have to take a different course of action. And at each time, we are consulting with the various stakeholders. We're listening to the public to see how we can basically adjust what we may have implemented. It is a very fluid situation. And I think you understand. I know it may be an inconvenience, but I really appeal to Barbadians to appreciate what we're going through at this point in time.
Acting Prime Minister, some of my colleagues in journalism wanted you to expand on this allegation that you made that the media was carrying fake news. Was that a slip of the tongue, or was that a real assessment?
I think the media perhaps should join with me in recognizing that there's a lot of fake news in the media generally. And media nowadays, Barbados' media is not what it used to be. Media generally across the world is not what it used to be. We are in an age of technology where information is shared quickly. Sometimes it's not the best information, it's not the most accurate information. My warning was to Barbadians to look for the reliable media sources. I mentioned the Government Information Service because guaranteed, that is obviously the first source for which, as Prime Minister, acting, that I would obviously seek to be able to get confirmed information of any facts through. But it was not a disrespect of any media houses, and I think instead of having a narrowed interpretation of what I said, I would hope that the association would rather look at the fact that, they're also up against competing interests.
You mean social? So you meant social media? Were you referring to social media
specifically
as distinct from the media in general?
The Advocate, the Caribbean Broadcasting, the Nation newspaper, Barbados Today, all of our media houses are doing a fantastic job in getting the message across to the people of this country. This is a simple case that it is not, pointing a finger at any of you, because you and the public is fair to say it's not you. But I think you're also well aware that there was a situation just a few days ago where someone attempted online to be able to put out in circulation a directive referring to a shutdown and tampering with the official gazette. Now, I want that the media houses will denounce that action and denounce the persons who are behind that, as we as a government have sought to do, because those types of things create the hysteria. They create the panic in the population. And it is obviously negligent on the part of any person or any media house or any social media person to be able to use the communication mechanism to create that sort of panic. So when I spoke of fake news, it was against a context that just the day before, we had been battling with the directive circulating online. My phone was bombarded with messages asking if it was true. Okay? So it is not a case of the existing media houses to which I was referring, but I was warning Barbadians, please look to reliable media in order to get your information. If it has been taken out of context, I sincerely apologize. But it was never intended to be that way. And I think the media who interface with me through all of the issues in education know that I do not in any way disrespect them when they ask me questions. I'm probably one of the most open and honest when it comes to any information, because I believe that the people have a right to know and that we must be transparent and we must also be accountable. So it would never be a disrespect of the media houses in this country.
Because it must be said that notwithstanding the particular incident that you spoke about where somebody got up to mischief and went to elaborate means to get up to that mischief, overall, mainstream media in Barbados has not been identified as being involved in that kind of behavior. And I think I've seen it right across the board, because I have to deal with the people who compete against us as well. And I think that, it is unfortunate that it came across as though it was a slur against mainstream media, when indeed we have been the ones that you can rely upon to get more credible information. So thank you very much for the clarification. This is down to Brasstacks. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Good afternoon. How do I, an average person, determine if something is fair news or not, especially if it have not been spoken about before, and this fake news come out, and when it comes out, it sounds so convincing. So how would I know?
Well, that's not for you to deal with, it's for the media houses to deal with it. You should, first of all, I see information online, and I see that it is attributed to certain organizations that I've never seen or heard about before. The first thing I do is I go and I look to see whether that organization really exists or not. And then I look to see who else has carried that information and whether they are reputable organizations. That's our job. We are supposed to make sure that, we carry authentic stuff. Now, in the case where somebody fiddles with the letterhead of a government letterhead or whatever, and it comes to the media, it is going to be interpreted as authentic, as long as it comes. I suppose you see it in your email and it looks official. So now that we have had that particular incident, we would certainly be put on guard that we may very well have to check with somebody within the agency that it is supposed to have come from to verify that they did indeed send it, and to look for more details, Perhaps if there's a number on it, call back the number and verify that is the case. So you have to rely upon the media house to do that kind of filtering for you.
Yeah, but sometimes the media house don't come up right away.
Well, you wait until, but you will have to wait until.
No, there's one more thing.
I am also talking about these situations where people send out voice notes, and they send out videos, and they send out things that are intended to create panic. All I'm saying to you is that those are the situations that we're asking Barbadians to desist from.
This is social media issues and computer misuse and that sort of thing.
Sure.
Now, next thing, the next thing, right? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, next thing, this social distance. I saw people bunch up together. I don't know if people are not understanding how serious this thing is. Even traveling on public transportation like ZRs and transport board buses where people are bunched up together. From what I see, if this thing continues, that's why I support the shutdown. If this thing was allowed to continue, if it didn't shut down the country, we'd be in some serious trouble. So on that point, I agree with shutting it down because you had a choice.
The problem here is this, Ms. Bradshaw. When the information came out that it was fake news, it turned out that eventually you came to the country and made a statement that made it seem as though it was authentic information in the first place. The timing. You may recall that?
But that was more coincidence than anything else. And obviously we had to use our own sources through the Government Information Service to let the country know that information was incorrect, that the document had actually been tampered with, because the official gazette would appear online, and somebody also obviously took the time to download the document and do whatever was necessary to manipulate it to be able to create a panic in the country. Now, the person who authored it may very well have anticipated what was coming based on the Czar's comments a few days before. But it was in no way intended that, we would have created that type of panic in the country by putting it out in that medium.
Of course, the government itself, by its own actions now, is accused of creating even greater panic.
And we will be accused of many things. But I think when we look at this situation in a couple of weeks and a couple of months and a couple of years, I'm sure we will reflect on this as a learning curve in Barbados as well. Yeah. There is no Bible, there is no precedent, there is nothing that we can pull from. every country across the world, every government is trying to respond to this situation because it is new. We don't have a cure for this virus.
Let me ask you, we had this situation with the AIDS epidemic years ago. There were processes that were put in place in terms of public information and that sort of thing. Are we being told essentially that because that happened 35 years ago, there's nothing coming out of that experience that's relevant to what's happening today? Whatever happened to the processes and mechanisms that were put in place at that time? Were they totally irrelevant to today?
I think it's a different time, and I think the fact that with HIV/AIDS, obviously you're dealing with a sexually transmitted disease. The messaging was obviously a bit different. I remember there was a phase with HIV where the authorities went through a battle as to how to get the message across. They used billboards. They told people to wrap it up. Then they went on to messaging about absenteeism. Again, because as information became available, some of the messages were not working. So I don't think the time is any different in terms of how we have to respond, because we are recognizing that some sectors in the society are listening, other people are not.
Did we revisit any of that? Did we revisit any of it, or did we discard it because we said it was a sexually transmitted disease and that was different?
No, but David, we're using all of the mechanisms to get the public to be educated about what is happening. I mean, the Czar can speak to it more in terms of all of the steps we've taken. Yeah, but go on, Richard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so David, I sat on the National HIV Commission, and I basically worked on doing a lot of the design and development, the conduct of knowledge, attitudes, and perception surveys that helped to guide us through the HIV epidemic. Yeah. And now finding myself back into a situation where I am offering the government the best advice I can in relation to the measures that are taken in public health epidemics. And that is also based on the experience that I had most recently in Sierra Leone. And I can say to you that nothing that we have learned over the course of even the past 100 years, even going back to the great epidemic, the pandemic Spanish flu, that ravaged the country 100 years ago, the globe. Nothing in all of that learning is being discarded, because we are dealing with a situation where we take the best in terms of what we have available, the knowledge that we have available. So you would have seen that some of the approaches that we've taken in terms of communicating with the public and the diversity of messaging that we've used, some of that has actually been borrowed from our approach that has been taken in other places. The large proportion of the listening public may not even be aware of some of the things that we are doing in terms of segmented outreach, because they simply do not live in that kind of social space. But we know that we have persons who are designing and disseminating messaging targeting to, let's say, the under 18 population in Barbados, who by their lifestyle and by their modes of interaction are significantly different from, let's say, someone 5 or 6 years older. So today's 16-year-old is very, very different in terms of where he gets his information, or she, how they process that information, from today's 26-year-old who is just 10 years different. Yes. So we've not discarded anything. We have sought to cull the best from what we've learned from previous approaches and use that in terms of informing how we go forward.
Okay, let's take one more call before we end today's edition of Down to Brasstacks. Hello? Yes, welcome. Good afternoon.
Afternoon?
Yes.
Welcome. I was trying to get through to ask two questions.
You got through.
Well, one question is...
Hurry up and ask the question, because you're listening to yourself.
Good afternoon.
Go ahead, ask the question.
I wanted to know if these people are having, these people that are doing the PPE, wearing the PPE suit, if they are having a bath when they are finished when they take off their PPE suit.
Yeah, and what's the next question?
And the next question is, why did the government take so long to be testing people when they enter the country?
Okay. Who's going to take that question?
David?
Yes.
Yeah. So as far as PPE is concerned, let me assure everyone who is listening that the persons who are using PPE would first have had to go through a rigorous process of training in relation to how you put on, how you take off, and how you dispose of PPE. And public health officials, thank God, so far, we've not seen a single public health official engage in the treatment of persons fall ill with COVID-19, and we hope that can continue. In relation to, I believe the second question was why they took so long in relation to testing. Let us be clear, we do not test people who enter the country. They are screened. Basically, the screening involves taking their temperature, doing a travel history assessment, and doing an assessment of risk that is carried out by our public health officials. And if those investigations suggest that the person has a history that places them at risk, then they would have been placed in quarantine. Let me further add that the government has decided that every single person entering Barbados, regardless of port of entry or regardless of port of exit, is required now to go into mandatory quarantine.
Well, I think that's where we're going to wrap up this program. I know that you all have a lot more questions, but, there's a limit to how far we can go. We've been here for a considerable time trying to field some of these questions. I want to thank the Acting Prime Minister, Santia Bradshaw, the COVID-19 Czar, Richard Carter, and Attorney General Dale Marshall for joining us on this program and answering questions on a day where you really, really needed to have these responses. I am absolutely sure that it may be necessary over this weekend also to have something that is similar to this. I don't know, possibly working on Sunday with Brasstacks. I think that we have a plan already for Brasstacks Sunday, but we're going to be flexible depending upon what the need is given what has happened here. Thanks also to Ronnie Clark, my technical operator and producer for today. To those of you whose questions weren't asked and you didn't get any answers to them, my sincerest apologies. But we have a situation here where we couldn't ask everything. There is a bit of information that I want to share with you once I get it, as it relates to how the people who are nursing, auxiliary nurses, and people who are doing private nursing, what about the passes and that sort of thing. We're going to try to get some of that information on the air for you. So you just stay tuned, keep listening to Voice of Barbados as we continue to try to keep you as informed as we can on COVID-19. I'm David Ellis. Do have a great afternoon and a pleasant weekend.